Good morning, good afternoon, LinkedIn. Welcome to another edition of Let's Build a HubSpot Super Admin with Lucy. How are you doing, Lucy?
Hi, Chris. Hello, everyone. I'm doing great. Super excited about our conversation today. I think it's going to be something.
It is. It is. And it's a big one. So we'll just dive right in. I'm pretty sure, I feel like it's almost every conversation that comes up right now. Integrations uh, makes makes an appearance, and by far the number one, I feel like, challenge for admins or anybody managing a HubSpot portal right now. So we're gonna dig in today, and you know, hopefully highlight some maybe easy paths to just understanding what's going on. What are you seeing out there when, or like what are you almost pre-prepared at this point to expect that conversation to happen, or are you waiting for like some trigger words like integration or stuff like that to address it?
No, I think more and more people are getting used to talk about this. Maybe not with the integrations word, um, but we've all heard tech stack. We've all heard about apps and software that we use for companies. And especially this time of the year that companies are reevaluating budget for the next year. The main question that I started receiving last week was, are we taking advantage of HubSpot? Are we actually doing the best for the money that we pay? Okay, so wait a second. So wait a second. The answer could be yes, and the answer could be no, but either of them could be good or bad. So when we think about integration, so first of all, when we think about HubSpot, we have discussed this, that we don't need to use it at its fullest, right? Maybe your company doesn't need to use 100% of the tools. You could benefit from them, but you might not use them. And you might also have other apps doing things that HubSpot could be doing, but you prefer for some reason to use those other apps. And sometimes you don't know that you have all those other apps and you don't know that HubSpot could do the same thing. So there are some areas of improvement. So the first thing is that HubSpot does not aim to solve everything, does not aim to be a one size fits all businesses. So you still will need to use and to have other apps for different purposes. For example, for invoices, for tax purposes, for inventory. Those are things that HubSpot still doesn't do natively. So you could still have them, right? And when we think about integration, the main purpose of integrations is how can we enrich the information that we have in the CRM with the information that we have outside the CRM so that we can make better decisions and hopefully better marketing actions, better sales proposals, better customer support or onboarding processes. So that's the main idea. But what's the problem usually in companies? When we enter, and I really encourage people to go, especially super admins, to go into the integration section in HubSpot and take a look at the apps that you already have integrated in HubSpot. Please let me know if you know all of those apps, who connected them, what are they being used for, or what is the goal of those apps. Because in most of the cases, companies don't know where they come from, don't know who connected them, or the person that connected those apps is no longer in the company. So that is the scenario that we live in today, and that is perfectly normal, but it shouldn't be, right? A super admin should be taking a look at that once a quarter, at least once a year. Please, please tell me that you're taking a look at there once a year. So if you want to evaluate what you're paying for or your budget for technology, you should consider everything, not only HubSpot, because at some point you might find opportunities to replace a third-party tool that you were using with a HubSpot native functionality. For example, chats or social publishing. In the past, we used to use a lot of tools like Hootsuite and Manychat, no, well, the other one that was an octopus, I don't remember the name, but Edgar, that it was for publishing. So we used to use all those other tools, but now if you have Marketing Pro and you get to do social posting, especially with AI assistants in HubSpot, you don't need those tools anymore. So you might evaluate at some point, maybe this time of the years, okay, we're going to migrate 2025, we're going to migrate this tool into using HubSpot so that maybe we can save a little bit of money, but the main purpose is to have all the information natively in HubSpot and taking advantage of that information.
Yeah. Oh man. Um,
A lot of
I
questions.
love the way I love the way you started it, like that question of am I getting the most out of HubSpot? Um, and I've never heard that answer before, but it makes sense in terms of like it could be yes, it could be no, and both answers could be good or could be bad. And I was having a conversation yesterday about can you come in and audit our portal to understand like what we could be doing better, right? Um, and it's pretty easy to go like, yeah, oh yeah, let me get in there, and this is where I'm outside, but an admin like this is what we're talking about when an admin could be doing this, should be doing this more than once a year, probably more than once a quarter, when there's 1,400 updates happening in a year. But like if you haven't answered the question, what is HubSpot's role like for the business, right? You don't even get to evaluate things, properly because as you say, you stated four massively different use cases like right out of the gate. There's marketing activity, sales, quoting, customer support, and onboarding, right? In a lot of organizations, those are four different teams. And just because you only have Marketing Hub, it doesn't mean like you could be like, yes, you're getting the most out of Marketing Hub, but do you not have a help desk system in place? And do you really need a help desk system? And you could be using HubSpot for that too. Um, like, so is it okay that you're getting the most out of your specific investment in HubSpot right now? Uh, it's very hard to have those conversations effectively if you haven't answered the question, what what do we want HubSpot to be doing, for the business? So is it fair to try and like start there if you haven't already said that?
Yeah, and sometimes consultants or partners or HubSpot users forget to ask the question, what other tools is your company using also? Because customers, what you don't know, you don't know. We have said this in the past, but it's our job as super admins to know what I can do with HubSpot, what I cannot do, but how can I support or how can I complement the part that I cannot do with HubSpot, right? So we have started to see, and we have discussed this a lot with Russell, the App Solution Partner Ecosystem Manager, that we are trying to connect HubSpot consultants with third-party app developers because we need them, and our work gets so much easy when we integrate all those other apps with HubSpot. Because we, as we mentioned before, we know that HubSpot cannot solve everything, so we need to start seeing HubSpot as an ecosystem. HubSpot as the main core of our strategy of the tech stack, let's just say. And then all other apps that we need to connect in order to take more advantage of the information that we have. And of course, we have easy examples as your Gmail, your calendar, even your webinar or your video call platforms like Zoom or Meet. Those are the easy ones, but people may not know that those are integrations too, right? Because they are done natively almost in 2 seconds, into clicks with HubSpot. And that is the idea, right? So those are one kind of integrations. But then we have the other kind of integrations that are a little bit more complex, but still can be done natively with HubSpot, but they are limited, right? Because if you want to do, for example, a Salesforce HubSpot integration or a Microsoft Dynamics integration or something with Zapier, you have that native screen in HubSpot that you get to map, but it's kind of limited because in general it's pointing to standard objects, but we all know that more and more we have been using custom objects, custom properties, calculated properties, and those cannot be matched in most of the cases yet. And I'm saying yet because I think, of course, everything is evolving. So sometimes people think that they're going to solve it all with that too, and they get frustrated because I couldn't connect it with the native integration. Okay, because you don't have something standard, you cannot use a standard connection or a standard integration, right? So then we need to jump into custom integrations. But as the word is said, this is custom. It needs to be done for your company, or this needs to be done outside HubSpot or in Operations Hub or any other kind of way, not the native screen that you're used to. And this is going to address more your use case, but it's going to take a little bit more time. And of course, it's going to take more efforts and more resources, and most of the times more money, right? But this will get you a more personalized result and solution for you, right? So we need to differentiate all those types of integrations, I think, because people tend to think that everything is okay, come on, do it in 2 minutes. And no, 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 no. That's not like this is work. So we need to start having more conscious conversations about what do we want to connect, why do we want to connect it, and how are we going to connect it. Let's just have in
Yeah.
mind, and I don't want to raise alarms here, but everything that you connect between softwares is a security breach. I'm going to say it again. Everything that you connect could be a potential security breach. Not because HubSpot is going to get hacked, but every information that is flying around internet and different systems could be at some point not only breached, but damaged, lost, something could happen. So every time that we connect something or that we connect it and we forget that that thing is connected, we have a little hole in our security, right? So this is why it's important to take enhanced integration thing to make it something more important, a more important conversation, and a really a responsibility for the super admin to keep an eye on, right? Not everyone,
Yeah.
as we always said, not everyone should have the permits, the super admin permits to connect apps. Every app, every software that is going to be integrated into HubSpot needs to be considered. Again, we need to define what are we connecting, why are we connecting it, what are we gaining from it, what do we want to obtain, what is the goal of connecting this. Most people, you know that this is funny, you know that most people don't know what happens when an app is connected to HubSpot. They don't know what properties are being brought into the CRM. They have never looked at it. And you
Yep.
now get to have, in most cases, most third-party apps, when they do integrations, you get a box and you get the special properties that you get to see. You have, in some cases, you get a custom card, the app cards that you now see in a record. But people don't know that. They just think that, oh, now I do this in this other app and this is synced. And that's magic. So we
Yeah.
need to stop thinking about things as magic. And let's not forget that we're working with software. And software works in a specific way. So our role as super admins is becoming more technical by nature. I don't mean that we need to have the specific technical details, but we need to know the impact in the CRM when we connect something. So when you're going to connect an app, whatever app you want to connect, just take a time to read the the page in the app marketplace to see which properties are being brought, which information is going to be synced. Just imagine from the goals or the KPIs that you want to start seeing, the reports that you get to build from that. Because if not, if you're not going to report and if you're not going to measure, why are you connecting this?
Yeah. No, I think it's first of all, this is where the double-edged sword of HubSpot making everything so easy. It's like, oh, I see the video. Yeah, click install. Like when you scroll down, and if you had taken the time to scroll down, and this is where there's tons of confusion around, well, why can't the native app work? Right? Or why can't we just use the native app and then customize it? It's like, no, that's not how those things work. And it for me, it happens all the time when you're seeing like ERP to HubSpot integrations. And if you scroll down to the page, let's say the NetSuite app integration, it shows you exactly which objects are involved and whether they're syncing one way or both ways. And that's where, we start with that question of what do we want to be happening, right? And we talk about mapping the data model and mapping your processes. Because if you don't have that, it's then very hard to evaluate that page and understand, oh, our process will require a two-way sync here, and it's not there. Like speaking of the QuickBooks integration that has been recently updated. And I think the key to understand is uh, at least ask some questions at that point. Like, can I easily make it, two-way sync? Or does that mean I think that's where it gets confusing. It could be the smallest thing that now you just can't even like it's got to be custom now, right? And we shouldn't even be messing with this native integration, no matter how easy it feels in the beginning, because the way these things built out, like you say, it's software, it's structured a certain way. Like how many times do we see, you know, internal naming of fields and this is using one kind of ID and this is using another, and we didn't expect that. And now that's where
And the
you go
property
very
type.
quickly. Yeah, you go very quickly from native integration that's super affordable to very not native and not affordable, right? And if you wait until that to kind of reactively happen, those are the most costly, most um, the riskiest situations to be in, because at that point you don't have a lot of choices and you've made this decision. You've done all the work to get everybody on board with this integration. Everybody's excited about it, and now all of a sudden it costs another, 10K, 20K. In most scenarios, inside this ecosystem at least, there are ways to be aware of that before it happens to you, right? Um, there's
Yeah, and
questions to ask, and that's what we're talking about here.
yes, and it's funny that we are talking, we easily arrive into the this is cheap or affordable and this is expensive. But again, pricing is always a discussion about value. So if you're trying to connect things just for the sake of connecting it and you don't see any value and you're not going to be relating that into any business goal, either if it's $20 or if it's 20,000, it's not worth it for you. It doesn't matter. Don't do it. Don't even lose time. Don't even, no, don't even do it. But if it's something that is core for your business, if it's something important, relevant, an important process, if this information is vital for your business or will improve really your processes or your revenue or your results, it doesn't matter again if it's 20 or 20,000, because the the benefits that you're getting from it are supposed to be much bigger. And not always, it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about time, sometimes it's about security, sometimes it's about trustful processes. There's a lot of reasons for paying for it and doing it custom. but it has to make sense for you and for your business. And but the first thing I want to say is, if the native integration is good for you, go for it. Do it with a native integration. Don't lose time thinking about talking with partners and saying no because I want to connect this and this. Yes, the native integration does that. Do it. Try it, test it. If it works, fantastic. You already have it. If it doesn't work, disconnect it, please. Don't leave it on and forget about it. Disconnect it and then start evaluating other apps. Yeah. We haven't discussed middleware. Middleware, I think I mentioned Zapier, and there are others also in the market, but Zapier, I think, is the most known. What this app does is connect HubSpot to them, and then they open the opportunity to connecting other apps that might not be in the app marketplace for native integrations. So most cases this can be done. And I can believe the first example that come in mind a long time ago that we did was syncing Facebook leads with HubSpot. When the marketing hub wasn't so strong at that point and we couldn't match Facebook leads and the forms were horrible and they were mixing all the information, we used to sync Facebook leads with Zapier into HubSpot. And in most cases, for a long time, it worked. I think it still works good, but it might not be needed if you have everything properly, all your ads platforms well properly integrated in HubSpot. But you can also encounter those scenarios what used to work a couple of years ago and that you did some way might need to change. This is why you need to keep auditing your integrations and keep auditing how they are working, because there might be new solutions available for you, not because you connected something 3 years ago because that was the only way it could be done at that point is the best solution now, right? The thing about middlewares like Zapier is like when you have a small database and you're not syncing or you're not integrating big volumes of information, that could work. That is good. But when you're thinking about bigger volumes of information, that is not going to work because that is going to become very costly. So at that point, you might want to evaluate either a custom integration or other ways of connecting your platforms, right? Operations Hub could work, or outside custom, really custom integrations, right? So you do have different levels that you get to experiment before you arrive into a custom integration, right? Start with the native, then if you want, you can try middleware, but then you can get to evaluate operations hub or custom integrations specifically built for you, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, in all the scenarios, I think the idea is to make a more robust data model in HubSpot. This is why, again, I would like to invite everyone to have a beautiful spreadsheet with all the names of all the apps that you have, which area or team or who in the team is responsible for that app, what is the goal, what do we want to achieve, how much does it cost, what are we trying to solve that we cannot do with HubSpot, or if we can, why do we choose that app instead of doing it with HubSpot? Sometimes the answer is because this is deeply ingrained in the team and how they work and in the process, and changing this would make such a mess and would take so much time for the team to really adopt this new process in HubSpot, that we'd rather prefer leave it like this. And that is totally understandable. So again, there is no yes or no, right or wrong answers here. It depends on every business, right?
Yeah. And I think it's useful. Something was coming to mind as you're taking us through those different tool options. Like it's so easy to let the tool options, drive this conversation. And uh, try not to do that because it ends up creating some maybe decisions that had good intent, but since it was coming from that framing of tools and what they're able to do and maybe what somebody has experience with or somebody doesn't like, or you just have all these conversations that end up not getting you where you want to go because that initial mention of it could be 200, it could be 20,000. It doesn't matter um, if the $200 one doesn't give you any value, or the $20,000 one, if you don't do it, keeps you from $1 million of growth, right? And when you try to have all that conversation like together, like tools and costs and goals, like it just creates it's very hard to move forward in those conversations. So that's why we talk about like understand those goals and find goals that really can cover a lot of ground, alignment ground, very quickly. And one of our favorite examples in the HubSpot space is this unified view of the customer, right? And which luckily aligns with a lot of the sales process, thankfully. But when you can get alignment there and have that be the goal, like that the whole leadership team, like everybody's, that's the goal. Now it's not a conversation of do we or don't we, right? It's if we want the unified view and there's data outside of the system, we have to get it in the system. And then, like, once that's confirmed, now you can have the conversation of how do we get it in the system and which tools make sense, right? Or do we change our behavior to make it start happening in the system? And for that conversation, I like to break it down into uh, these three different data activity categories. Basically, are we is is it is it being created? Is it being managed and maintained, or is it being communicated? Right? And almost always, HubSpot's going to win out if we just need to communicate the data, either internally or externally, which means we need that unified view because that's the place it's most easy to communicate it where it needs to go. And then these other systems, like you mentioned, inventory management, clearly, if we're working with one of those systems, we just need the data over into HubSpot because we want to communicate it. The other system is creating and maintaining the data. So that's been helpful for me over the past year as I kind of learn, because you get really caught up in what the capabilities of all these different systems are. And I'll come back to NetSuite as a good example of the conversation I was having yesterday. Like, because HubSpot has expanded so quickly, if you get into a conversation with somebody who knows NetSuite, like you start to try and mimic how NetSuite does it, even though it doesn't work so well like that in HubSpot, right? And now because of that, it's like harder and more costly to get to the unified view. Um, so like we said at the beginning, it's a huge topic right now, lots of different variables.
Yeah.
But what is your go-to? Like, what is the one thing that's like, if you see somebody struggling with maybe integration costs or too much integration or not enough, like how do you like how do you create the foundation to actually have a productive conversation?
Well, I think the first step would be like auditing all the tech stack at some point, as I mentioned, having either an easy Excel file, just lining up all the other tools that you're using. If you're getting value from it, why are you using them? How are you using them? And one by one, evaluating all the tools that you're using and identifying what are the gaps and how should we do it, right? And just to build a plan. So once we know that, that could take a long time because those are usually long conversations. Usually the owners of the app, the person that connected, is very jealous about that and doesn't want to give that up. So okay, we need to start understanding that. So it takes time. Sometimes we do decide to migrate into using HubSpot. Sometimes the only solution is to integrate. And you did mention different things. Well, I'm going to come back to this later. So that is the first step. The second step is testing, not going by once and connecting everything. So you can do tests. Ideally, if you have enterprise and we can have test portals and we can have sandboxes, we can start doing their tests, and then once we are okay with what we get, we can do it on the main portal. That would be ideal. Sometimes we don't get to do that. Why this is recommended? Well, because sometimes you don't want to mess up with the things that are already going, because people are still working on the live portal and we don't want to mess up with information there. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes owners get changed because you're syncing to platforms, and that happens, and we cannot prevent that. We could think that that could happen, but we cannot prevent it because that's set up by the integration itself. So testing is an important part. Sometimes we do, as I mentioned, these test badges or in these test portals, and then we come to the main portal. Then, of course, the deploy of the integration itself and putting it live and communicating. Because if you don't communicate the integration that you have just done, nobody cares, nobody knows. Someone else in your team might be thinking, oh, we don't have this, and it's going to connect another app that does the same thing, but maybe it's from the competence, um, another brand or something else. So communicate. Everyone should know what is connected into HubSpot, because if not, you are going to encounter that. And the bigger the companies, the bigger the stakeholders teams are, the bigger the mess that gets done in the CRM.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because I think the other side of that is either way, like if people are unaware of what's happening, right? You
yeah,
mentioned they might find other tools to do the same thing, but on the other side, it's like maybe you're about to impact somebody a great deal. And this is what we saw with the QuickBooks integration update specifically. Like if you turn it on and all of a sudden one team can't do their job, right? That's not going to go well
yeah,
for you. So this like this is where it might be a challenge, and this is why we're asking admins to kind of maybe raise the level of what their role is in the organization. Like at the very least, you have to be able to communicate like what's going on. And if you don't understand who's impacted, you cannot communicate, to them effectively.
yeah. Fun fact, last week, I think, or a couple of weeks ago, someone of our team said, oh, I think I'm going to evaluate changing this platform because I cannot do this. And I think we have hit something, a roadblock, and I might start. I'm already starting to see videos about this attitude. Wait. I said, wait a minute. Have you had a chat with someone on support for this platform that we are using currently? No. As I remember, we used to have 1 free hour consultancy. Have you booked that free consultancy hour just to say, hey, we cannot do this. Can you help me solve it? Oh, no. Okay, so why don't we start doing that and see if we can solve the problem with the current tech stack? And then if we don't, we could start evaluating if we want to switch platform. But he was already going like, I'm going to take a quote and I'm ready a free trial. But it
Yeah.
happens to the best of us. So it's
Oh
totally
yeah.
understandable that it could happen to any company, right? Sometimes we get excited because we see new mirrors and shiny lights and new stuff and new brands. But wait a minute, sometimes we need to evaluate what we already have, because change takes time. And I think that everyone that is hearing us already know Big Tony here, that he always talking about adoption and change management. So it takes time. So don't make these decisions so light. Oh yes, we just changed the app and we integrate this other one. No, because teams don't get used to things that fast. And setting up the
Yeah.
CRM is not so fast always. And then fixing the problems that you generate because of doing all those switches is not easy either. So we need to, again, be more conscious about what we do, take more responsibility, and take the time to evaluate. in these fast paced lives that we have today, and with, especially with technology and everything changing, we don't take the time to think the decisions that we do. But technology is not something that you build from one day to the other one. So it's a pretty big decision, whatever you're thinking about changing things. So I wanted to come back, if you don't mind, to something that you said that I think it's also important. So coming back to the type of integrations that we have, we usually think in integrations the traditional way, that are the property syncing integrations, right? But those are not the only one. We do have different types of integrations inside HubSpot. And the second one that we get to have are the custom cards. Custom cards are not for everyone, most enterprise licenses, and we need developers to do this. Hopefully, we have Martin on the team to do custom cards. But what we can achieve with custom cards is seeing in a card, in a record, a special card, bringing information from an outside system. And this could be only visibility. I can be seeing only what's happening in another platform, but inside HubSpot in a native way, because the cards look the same as any other card in the CRM. Or I could be seeing the information and also updating information in the CRM. So this is another way of integration that people might not have so in mind, because this is rather new. Custom cards are rather new in the CRM. And this is, for example, very helpful when you want to see unpaid invoices or customers that have unpaid invoices in another system that you don't have inside HubSpot, right? Or when you want to see, for example, any kind of app usage that you don't have inside HubSpot, but you want to see it. You want to see if this account is active, if this account has finished their onboarding process, all other information that you have outside the CRM. So that is another kind of integration. But we might not know it as integration, but in the end, it all connects through the API, so it's integration.
Yeah.
And the third type of integration that is not neither the traditional or neither the custom card are the reports. When you get to be on a dashboard, you get to embed reports, pulling information from outside the CRM. And again, you get to visualize, only view maybe either reports coming out from anywhere or just like the custom cards, but seeing it in a dashboard. This is another way of integration. So this is ideal when you want to compare, for example, to different platforms that are giving similar information, or when you have, that functionality from the dashboards that you get to send it by email weekly or frequently to some stakeholder, to some manager, and you don't want to send two different emails, one from HubSpot and one from the other platform. Okay, so we can embed that information in HubSpot, so you get to send only one, or they get to come only inside HubSpot to watch all the information happening there. So again, HubSpot has become so robust about integrations. So we have a lot of possibility. The API is the main star here, that is always in the custom side of the conversation. It's always giving us access to everything that we want to see or that we want to sync. So it's always good to have a developer on your side, or at least on your phone, on your frequently friends
Yeah.
numbers, because we do have a lot of potential. So when we talk about custom things, it doesn't have to be very, not always has to be very expensive, but it really opens a lot of possibilities. It really helps us break HubSpot down and customize and bring a lot of fresh information into the CRM. Again, from doing to do, or the goal is to get a main profile, a complete profile of your customers and of your prospects in the CRM. That I think is the most valuable thing. And we do get options. We have mentioned a lot of them today. So there's an option for everyone, for every wallet, for every budget, team size. Because sometimes, again, we haven't discussed about team size, but let's just say that integrations need to be reviewed, need to be taken care of. So especially
Need
the
to be
custom
maintained.
one, maintain. Yeah, the custom ones need maintenance because people things can break, technology changes, development code changes also, so things can break. You need someone that is always taking care of that. Either if it's internally or externally, you need the resources. So if you're going to evaluate that, you need to have the resources. Yeah. And sometimes teams don't have internal resources to do that, and that's okay. But you need to look for a partner or someone that knows how to do that. So if we're talking about native integrations, again, you should be taking a look at that also, because software changes, and not only HubSpot. Sometimes, a lot of cases we've had, mostly with Salesforce integrations, you start having all those error messages in the property sync. Why? We didn't change anything. No, you didn't. Salesforce did. So the other
Yeah.
app is also doing updates. They're also changing things. They're also upgrading and changing things in the platform. And that is normal. So integrations could break also. So you need to have as your audit plan, you need to have that thing in your agenda, that is, have a look at the integration panel just to see if my integrations are working properly, if something is breaking, or if you start seeing that some information that should be there because it was part of integration is no longer there. You go to see the property and the property is blank, and you click on the pencil and you see the details and you see maybe HubSpot reset it and nobody knows who in HubSpot changes this. Now, what does that mean? Because we're all trying to call HubSpot, who in HubSpot changes this? Now, that message means that something from the development point of view changed, which has meant that that information is no longer available, either for HubSpot or from the other platform. So that is what that means. It doesn't mean that someone in HubSpot entered your portal and deleted that information. No, something changed in the integration. So now that you know what does it mean, go into the integrations panel, review your integration, and just try to take a look at it. And if you get to know or to see if something changed, sometimes again, property type changes, property names changes, maybe someone in your team change a value and the property stop matching because it cannot find the same value on the other side. Sometimes we delete
Yeah.
users or we add new users and we forget that we need to add the same user in HubSpot too. The other day we had a question in the community saying, I cannot sync my users between HubSpot and Salesforce. Do you have the same user with the same email in both platforms? But it's something, it's easy to say, no, panic, we don't have it. Have you compared both users in
Right.
both platforms? Is that the least match? Do you have everyone? So the final answer was that, oh no, I don't have that user in HubSpot. Okay, so that's why you cannot sync the user. So those
Yep.
are obvious things that sometimes we forget. They're so obvious that we forget them, right?
Right. Yeah. And
So
that's why we say like developing this protocol of awareness and auditing, and because the tool set's better than ever. And when we say like it's you have most every tool you need to understand what's happening. And what we don't want you to do is wait for a user to tell you that something has broken, because often they don't. They just stop doing the thing, right? It's like, oh, this field isn't syncing anymore, so I'm just not filling it out anymore. And I'm just worrying about it in Salesforce, or I'm just worrying about it over here. Or it comes to me via email, so I just forward it from there. And like, because they still have a job to do and they will get their job done, uh, whether or not that's happening. But, behind the scenes, it starts to, root or chip away at the credibility of the system that everybody's supposed to be using. And And that's why, like, when you can get ahead of this stuff, and the only way you can is to have that awareness and find those errors. And that's where uh, one of the most valuable mindset shifts you can have is you're not there to just fix broken stuff, right? You're there to maintain an uptime and
Yeah.
proactively, manage the system. And uh, most leaders, most organizations, while they might not say that's what they want out of you, they will appreciate it very much, and it's very hard to undervalue, the role, um, when that's apparent. So, um,
Yeah, and
uh,
coming back to conversation, just to say that you're not alone. You don't have to do the decisions alone. Have conversations with your peers, have conversations with the team. Ask them once or twice a quarter or twice a year if you want. How are things going with this app? Are you happy with it? If you could improve something, what could it be? Just gather information so that you can make better decisions and you can make better proposals for them on how to use them or how to elevate the level of the value of the app integration in HubSpot. Because if not, the future is always the same. Interest is going to decay, usage is going to decay, people are going to abandon apps, they're going to start testing other ones, and we don't want to be doing that all the time. So it's better
yeah,
to know early and try to fix that thing, and avoid people doing things on the side, because you know how it works, that oh, this doesn't work, so I'm going to start hard coding this and doing this manually and start having Zapier to complete this other information. No, that is a Frankenstein, and if that can be avoided with one conversation, why don't we do it? If this doesn't work, okay,
yes,
how can we change it? How can we improve it? So the worst things always happen, as in marriages and in friendship and in everything, because the lack of conversations. So let's
yes,
just have better conversations. Not forget that we set things up. As we always say, we don't set and forget in HubSpot. We need to always be reviewing, always be auditing. I know it could sound overwhelming, but this is part of a super admin's job. Again, you can do this monthly, you can do this quarterly. Just have it in your agenda. Do it once in a while. Have a look at it. Have a little conversation, 5 minutes. Do a quick survey to the teams to just how things going with this app. If everything is okay, good job. Nothing to do here. If everything is not okay, okay, you have work to do. You can solve this, or you can at least look at solutions for it, right? Options. There's always options. The good
yes,
thing, the good news is, let's just say the good news of the day, there's always options, and we have a lot of options, from the most easier one and the most less expensive ones to the most custom, robust, and maybe most valuable and a little bit expensive. Let's just say it, but
but
we have
most
all the
valuable.
options. Yeah, the most valuable, because
Yep,
I think when you do something custom, it is more valuable because it adapts as to your business as a glove. You're building this perfect for you. So that is the
yeah,
good thing about custom things.
yep,
So yeah, we do have options. That is the good thing.
yes. And just be aware of the options, I think, is step one, and be aware of what you're trying to do to be able to use those options. So this has been fun. I think there's so much to be said about integrations, but definitely if you're out there having challenges, like, don't hesitate to reach out. Um, you're obviously not alone. Maybe it's not obvious, but know that you're not. Um, Everybody's dealing with these challenges right now, and the HubSpot product team wants to hear from you. There's lots of consultants, like Lucy, that would love to help as well. So if you haven't looked at your system in a while, like, go over to settings, and check out the integrations. Find those opportunities, and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Awesome.
I was